Starting a business. Basic factors. Successful results in business depend largely upon the ability of the entrepreneur or the starters of a new business to anticipate the problem and solve them with minimum cost. Some of the basic factors which must be considered by anybody who is to start the business are as follows: selection of line business, size of firm, choice of form of ownership, location of business enterprise, financing the proposition, physical facilities, plant layout, competent and committed workforce, tax planning, launching the business enterprise. Let's discuss them one by one. Selection of line business. The first thing to be decided by an entrepreneur is the nature and type of business to be undertaken. Let's understand these points from Mr. Ram's perspective, who wants to start his business. The first question which will come to his mind is what kind of a business he wants to start. Whether he wants to be a grocer or wants to open a bakery, cafe or restaurant. He will obviously like to enter that branch of industry and commerce which has the possibility of greater amount of profits. Let us assume that fruit and vegetable business has greater amount of profits when compared to rest of the business. Mr. Ram will likes to become a grocer. The decision will also be influenced by the customer requirements in the market and also the kind of technical knowledge and interest the entrepreneur has for producing a particular product. Thus, to summarize, we can say that choosing the nature or type of a business depends on three factors. First, greater amount of profits. Second, customer requirements. Third, technical knowledge and interest of the entrepreneur. Size of the business or scale of the operation is another important decision to be taken at the start of the business. Some factors favor a large size, whereas other tends to restrict the scale of operation. If the entrepreneur is confident that the demand for the proposed product is likely to be good over time and he and she can arrange for necessary capital, then he or she will start the operation at large scale. If the market conditions are uncertain and risks are high, a small size business would be a better choice. Let's say Mr. Rams wants to open a grocery shop. Now he wants to decide what will be the size of his business. Well, if Mr. Ram is confident enough that the demand for the proposed product is likely to be good over time and he can arrange for necessary capital, he should open a supermarket, that is, carry the business on larger scale. But if Mr. Ram is uncertain about the market condition and the risks are high, then he should open a small grocery shop. Choice of form of ownership. With respect to ownership, the business organization may take the form of sole proprietorship, partnership, or a joint stock company. Each form has its own merits and demerits. Now Mr. Ram has to decide if he wants to be the only owner in his business, then he should go for sole proprietorship where there is only one owner. If Mr. Ram wants to open his business with two or more persons, he should go for partnership. Another form of ownership is joint stock company where there is lots of owners known as shareholders. The choice of the suitable form of ownership will depend on such factors as the line of business, capital requirements, liability of owners, division of profit, legal formalities, continuity of business, transferability of interest, and so on. Let's discuss these factors. Say Mr. Ram wants to open a small grocery shop which requires less capital and he doesn't want to share his profit, he should go for sole proprietorship. But if Mr. Ram wants to open a supermarket which requires large capital and is okay to share his profit, he should go for partnership. What will happen if Mr. Ram dies? Well, if Mr. Ram wants his business to be continued even after its death, he should go for joint stock company where there is continuity of business but with lots of legal formalities. Location of business enterprise. An important factor to be considered at the start of the business is the place where the enterprise will be located. Next question on Mr. Ram's mind is in which city he wants to open his business. Whether in India like Chennai, Mumbai, Ahmedabad, Udaipur, or outside India like New York or France. The important factors while making the choice of location are availability of raw material, labor, power supply, and services like banking, communication, transportation, and warehousing. Any mistake in this regard can result in high cost of production, inconvenience in getting right kind of production inputs, or serving the customer in the best possible way. For example, if you choose your factory on the narrow roads where it is not possible to transport the raw material and finished goods to the factory gate, it will become an issue. And since setup of factory requires large or huge capital investments, you cannot change the place of the factory again and again. Financing the proposition. Financing is concerned with providing the necessary capital for starting as well as for continuing the proposed business. Now Mr. Ram wants to decide how much money he wants to start his business, which is known as capital. Capital is needed for investments in fixed assets, current assets, and day to day expenses. What are fixed assets? Fixed assets are the long term assets purchased by the company and are used for production of goods and services. They comprised mainly of land, building, machinery, and equipments. Current assets are the short term assets which are expected to be sold or consumed within 1 year or can be easily converted into cash. They are raw materials, book debts, stock of finished goods. Capital is also required for meeting day to day expenses like electricity, salary, and rent. Proper financial planning must be done to determine the requirement of capital, the best way of utilizing the capital in the firm, and the sources from where the capital will be raised, say equity, debt, or through bank loans. Physical facilities. Availability of physical facilities, including machines and equipment, building, and supportive services, is an important factor to be considered at the start of the business. The decision relating to this factor will depend on the nature and size of business, availability of funds, and the process of production. Mr. Ram has two options whether he can open the furniture business or the cooking business. Say he choose the cooking business. Now he have to decide the size of the business, whether it's on the larger scale or the small scale. Physical facilities also depend on the availability of funds. The last factor to determine physical facilities is the process of production. Say if Mr. Ram wants to open a furniture business, he can go for the manual process or through the automated process driven by the machines. Plant layout. Once the requirement of physical facilities has been determined, the entrepreneur should draw a layout plan showing the arrangement of these facilities. Layout means the physical arrangement of machines and equipment needed to manufacture a product. Now Mr. Ram has to decide what will be the layout for his factory, that is, how his factory will look like. Where will be the gates for the workers' entry and exit? From where the transport vehicles will go in and out? Where will warehouse be located to store finished goods and raw materials? And where will he place machine and equipments? Competent and committed workforce. Every enterprise needs competent and committed workforce to perform various activities so that physical and financial resources are converted into desired output. Mr. Ram, who is opening a bakery business, will require workforce to convert the raw material, that is flour, egg, butter, into finished product, which is cake. Since no individual entrepreneur can do everything himself, he or she must identify the requirement of skilled and unskilled workers and managerial staff. Mr. Ram, who is a bakery owner, cannot perform all the functions required to run a bakery all by himself. That is, it is not possible for Mr. Ram to be a salesperson, cashier, runner altogether. Therefore, he will require competent and committed workforce to run his bakery, which will comprise of chef, runner, server, manager. Plans should also be made about how the employees will be trained and motivated to give their best performance. That is, you can introduce Employee of the Month to motivate the employees to give their best performance. Tax planning. Tax planning has become very necessary these days because there are a number of tax laws in the country and they influence almost every aspect of the functioning of modern business. Mr. Ram, who is going to start bakery business in India, must know about all the taxes prevailing in India, which will affect his bakery business. He must know about the taxes he will be charging from the customer and paying to the government. There are basically two types of taxes. First, GST, which is levied on goods and services. And second is income tax, which Mr. Ram will be paying on the profit earned by him on the bakery business. The founder of the business has to consider in advance the tax liability under various tax laws and its impact on business decisions. Launching the business enterprise. After the decision relating to the above mentioned factors have been taken, the entrepreneur can go ahead with the actual launching of the enterprise, which would mean mobilizing various resources, fulfilling necessary legal formalities, starting the production process, and initiating the sale promotion campaign. Thank you all for watching this video. I hope all of you like this video. If you want regular updates on this channel, please like and subscribe this channel and comment if you want video notes for the next chapter. Thank you all.